back in Caracas, but we're going to continue talking about the important day that is today for Venezuela and for everyone that participated. As I was saying just a minute ago, we were talking that Maduro, President Nicolas Maduro, welcomed everyone that played a part in saving Alex Saab from the injustice of prison, of the illegal prison that he was being put in the U.S. and firstly in Cape Verde. Now, we witnessed these images that we're seeing on our screen right now. This is the moment that Alex Saab arrived to Caracas finally, where he was welcomed by Celia Flores, the first combatant of the country, that received the family, in general, Alex Saab's wives and his children, back to the country, to their homeland. And also, this was the moment that everyone was a way of fulfilling a long-last quest that began with Saab's family, because it was his wife that began this whole campaign of freedom for Alex Saab that was echoed worldwide, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world joined this campaign of Free Alex Saab campaign to have justice be served, and finally that the Venezuelan diplomat could return back home. Maduro made emphasis that Alex Saab, despite suffering what he had to go through, that ordeal of being illegally detained and being away from his family, his mission, his humanitarian mission, was a complete success, because all the medicines, all the vaccines, all the fuel that he went out to get in the humanitarian mission that he was, they did arrive to the country. They did help the Venezuelan people to cope with the difficult situation that they were experiencing. So it was the silver lining in that moment that should never have happened. These are images that we are seeing of earlier in the day as he arrived to the airport. People already around the world have come out to celebrate the freedom of Alex Saab. Have come out to join in this moment of celebration on his X account. The vice President of Communication and Culture and Tourism, Fernandez, shared the statement of the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry, where he announced at last the freedom of Alex Saab. The Vice Minister of Politics and Against Blockades against Venezuela, William Castillo Boyer, also used the X account to spread the news that victory had been achieved finally and that Alex Saab had returned to the country. Also from Cuba, the Foreign Minister, Bruno Rodriguez, joined the celebrations and affirmed that the freedom of the diplomat is a result of the untirable management of the Venezuelan government to end this unfair detention of Alex Saab, first in a Cape Verde prison and then in the U.S. Sociologist, professor, and communicator Aníbal Garzón also provided statements also on the X account. He said that it was a very good news and the countback had begun for the diplomat Alex Saab, a freedom that is thanks to the daily fighting of many Venezuelans and people around the world for the Free Alex Saab campaign. Likewise, professor, writer, analyst, and Mexican politician Alfredo Jalife also sent a message citing the Venezuelan statement from the Foreign Ministry that provided the news that Alex Saab had finally been released and returned to his homeland. The political scientist Catu Arconda also joined the messages to remind that a very few years ago, a few days ago, he was taking part in the protest asking for the freedom of the diplomat, of the Venezuelan diplomat that succeeded in his humanitarian campaign to bring the necessary supplies back to Venezuela during that harsh moments of the 2020. Now we're going to go back live to Caracas with our correspondent, Gladys Quesada. It seems we have communications. Gladys, hello, can you hear us again?
Yes, Luis, I can hear you and fine, perfectly. We are here in Caracas. The nation and all the Venezuelan people is receiving gladly this diplomat of Lebanese and Colombian origin, but nationalized Venezuelan, and someone that has fought for the Venezuelan people, and also is someone that has maintained a dignity and a posture and a stance in front of the aggressions. Alex Saab is back home and was received in the Miraflores Palace by the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and he was received in the airport by the first combatant, Cilia Flores de Maduro, and the president of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, and other officials, but first and foremost by his family and his wife, Camila Fabri, and his 5 children. As we know, the Venezuelan people has been fighting for the freedom of Alex Saab for 3 years, as he was detained back in June of 2020, and he spent 1,820 days in prison. And as we know, he was back there under mistreatment, under torture, and also lacking the proper health care and access to other supplies that he needed, and isolated from his legal team and his family. So far, the Venezuelan people has been fighting for his freedom, and social media is abundant on the reactions and also of the rejoice with the freedom and the release of Alex Saab. As we know, he is back home. He's also given the first statements after his return, after arriving in Caracas, and he was stressing his confidence in the government of Venezuela, and also he was stressing his position and all the welcoming of the Venezuelan officials. This is, moreover, the parliament information, the main information, and we are expecting other details as this progresses, and we are here. Back to you, Luis.
Thank you, Gladys, for that information. I don't know if you're still on the line. No, we have a problem, she cut off. Okay, let's continue talking about the important day that was today for the Venezuelan people, for everyone involved in this paramount moment that Alex Saab, the Venezuelan diplomat, returns to the nation, to Caracas, and is welcomed by his family, his loving family, and by the president and the first combatant of the country as a full ceremony of welcoming and a hero back to the nation, because Alex Saab was a hero, because we must remember the mission that he was, which is the most important. What he was doing was to save life of Venezuelans during that moment that Venezuela was experiencing a very difficult time because of all the hundreds and hundreds of sanctions imposed, especially during the Trump administration and during the onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was Alex Saab, one of the first that went out to try to bring the resources that the country needed to be able to face this pandemic, which at the very beginning, it was very difficult for especially southern countries, that the first world countries, the so-called first world countries, were hoarding all the supplies and were forgetting about everyone else. But thanks to solidarity and international friendship, other nations were able to join in. In this case, when Alex Saab was detained illegally in Cape Verde, he was on his way to Iran to continue in strengthening of relations and the exchange of goods for the well-being of both peoples. And the plane landed in Cape Verde just for refuel, a pit stop to refuel and continue on its way to Iran. But illegally, the authorities of the nation, the then authorities of that nation, arrested the diplomat that was under, since he was a diplomat, he was protected by the international conventions of diplomatic immunities. And the charges, which Maduro expressed today when he was welcoming him at the Miraflores Palace, all the charges that were put on Alex Saab, they were never proven. Until today, they have never been proven. And later on, the illegal detention was even worse, because they then extradited Alex Saab back to to the U.S., where he was detained until now, and finally he returned. The last images that we saw live of Alex Saab and his family was at the entrance of the Miraflores Palace, as he was being welcomed by the president and the main authorities of the nation, and now they are holding a conversation, a talk, I imagine. President Maduro said that they had lots of talk about all this over these years, that they fought together, both the Venezuelan people and the world, led by the Saab family, by his wife and his children, for the Free Alex Saab campaign to finally bring the hero, the diplomat Alex Saab, back home. Stay tuned with teleSUR English. We're going to continue updating all these informations as they are unfolding, and stay with us.